Good evening. I'm going to call to order our school committee meeting on Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. Excuse my appearance. I came in from a field trip the last 3 days. I had to wear business attire, so I decided to keep the sports coat on. I know that the town of Wakefield is not used to seeing me dressed so professionally. Just want to let everyone know that's the reason. You do not expect to see this in the future. Next item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the reading of our mission statement. The vision of the vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing a rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's any member of the public that is on the line who wishes to address the school committee, you may do so at this time. Ian, do we have? I see there is no one on the line. We are going to move out of public comment. Next item on the agenda is the Student Advisory Council. Do we have any students online that wish to give us a report on anything that's going on in our buildings? Do we have any students that are waiting in the Zoom?
No.
No students? Okay. So we have no students. Hopefully next time at our next meeting, we'll get to hear an update on what's going on in our schools. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. I think we have a motion.
Move the school committee approve the minutes of the March 24th, 2026 school committee meeting, accept the minutes of the May 23rd, 2025, October 24th, 2025, January 16th, 2026, February 13th, 2026, February 27th, 2026, and March 6th, 2026 Finance and Facilities Subcommittee meetings, and approve the minutes of the March 14th, 2026 Saturday Budget Workshop, March 25th, 2026 Public Hearing, and April 1st, 2026 School Committee Budget Deliberation and Vote Meeting.
Second.
All right, motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? I actually had one question. All right, I'll ask a question. So for the Saturday budget workshop, I just want to clarify, is that also going to be posted by Finance Committee, or was that our meeting?
It was a joint meeting.
It was a joint meeting, right? Okay. I just didn't know if the minutes, as long as we approve the minutes, everything's good. They don't have to approve the minutes independently.
I thought we hosted the meeting.
Okay.
I did think it was our meeting.
So it's good. All right. So we're all set. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure. Okay. That's my only question. So the motion has been seconded. If there's no other discussion, we'll do. Well, all those in favor? All opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda are budget items.
Sure.
Do we have any business reports?
We do. Thank you, Kevin. So tonight you have the financial report for July 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2025, as we're entering the last 3 months of the fiscal year. Again, you can see from the first page that 2 areas that we're watching closely are pupil transportation and contracted services are dramatically over budget compared to last year. Like we've been talking about due to special education, the rise in costs this year for that population. So we're still watching those lines. The available budget is still $771,000, $189 to be exact, but we are watching those lines. We think we're going to be fine for the end of the year. We still have the budget offsets to do for the revolving accounts, so that will afford us the prepays that we need to do for out-of-district tuition costs for next year. But more to come in the next couple months about that. We'll just kind of go down to the grants. As we're entering the last couple months of the year, you'll see that all balances are continuing to be reduced. Still, the MECO still has some things to be spent for this year. We have a little bit over $200,000 left in the grants. Those will all be spent by June 30th, which they have to. And then the last page is, of course, the revolving accounts. We are just hovering over $3 million. The biggest revolving account is school lunch. And we've had some conversations with our finance subcommittee and with the superintendent about the large purchases that school lunch is going to have this year in order to reduce that balance. And we're still going to have Dustin O'Brien come and speak to school committee about the benefits for that program, because that will be subject to the vote of the school committee. But those balances are being reduced, if you can see from where they were last year at this time, particularly the preschool tuition and the Wakefield Academy, especially with the offsets still to be done. It's going according to how we've projected that they would be a slow, thoughtful spend down, but also keeping in mind that we want to have a balance at any time in those accounts of 3 months worth of expenditures, which is what the recommendation is for any healthy revolving account, to keep a balance of slight reserves on hand at any time. Any questions about the financial reports?
Just one quick question, Christine. So I see the contractual services being the area that's been impacted the most.
Yes.
And have some of the bigger, larger negative balances. But I see up above clerical.
Yep. So that was due to a couple of things. We've had a change in, we've had a retirement at one of the schools in that clerical position, and the new clerical contract, so it's slightly over budget, but that will be adjusted in the next budget moving forward for those projections. But we'll have to do a budget transfer to make sure that that line is in line to what it's actually being spent. But yeah, I mean, this is the type of year that you see, you know, the negatives in some lines, because you see those budgets were projections from a year ago, and then when you actually see the realization of what the actuals were, you know, it kind of gives us some pause about next year, as we've been talking about what the true budget drivers are for this. Of course, we're fortunate we still have a balance in personnel services, but keep in mind, we still have things to pay out for the end of the year. We still have some longevity payments for some of our groups that aren't encumbered yet, and some of our spring sports for referees and officials and things of that nature. So we're going to be in good shape. It's just that at this type of year, to see that balance go under $1 million, it's like, here we are. It's, yeah, it's really being spent down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions about the business report? All right, seeing one. Next item on the agenda are payroll warrants. Do we have a motion?
Move that the school committee approve payroll warrants number 38 and 40.
Second.
All right, the motion has been seconded. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And I believe we have a gift.
We do have a gift. a gift from, for the Wakefield Track Boosters Club, for two, I think there's a motion for two coaches.
Move the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of a stipend valued at $6,603 from Wakefield Track Boosters Club for two assistant boys and girls track coaches for the 2025-2026 winter season.
Second.
All right, motion has been seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you, Christine, for the report.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, superintendent's remarks.
So I'm going to start off with comments and updates. We have a number of them because our Wakefield Memorial High School student ambassadors are not here this evening. I'd like to start off with a quick update or some video clips from drone footage taken on the construction site for the new WMHS. Ian, can we play those? There we go. So just so that everyone knows, while we're looking at this, the school committee was able to make a tour of the building about a week ago, right? Last week. And when you see it from an aerial view, you can get a pretty good sense of how quickly things are coming together. So the building, the section on the right, that's all academic. That's an academic section. And on the left, where you see it looks like there's kind of white siding, vertical siding, that's the new gymnasium. And directly behind that, there's a rectangle, like a brick rectangle connected to that. That is the new auditorium. But we are on budget and on time in terms of the schedule. So again, so that our viewing public knows, we are planning to move into the new building next January, right after break. And we've been working hard to make sure that all is in line so that we can kind of get that and hit all of those targets. Facilities is also going to be working over the April break to start to prioritize getting rid of or salvaging whatever they can salvage from the old building. And so they're kind of working on that over the break. But this is the back area where we walked. So in that V right there where you see his little blue right in the center of the screen, that's going to be a student area, a common area where kids will be able to go outside and eat lunch. There'll also be opportunities for teachers to go out and teach out there. But that's what the back of the building looks like. So that kind of rectangle right there is the auditorium. You can see the new gym, which is a large rectangle in the center. And then on the lower right is central office. So just to give people a quick update of what it looks like. And again, the important information that we are on time and on budget. And so I don't know what your thoughts are or were when you went to visit the building, Kevin?
Yeah, I think, in Saugus, we built a new building where we entered in 2020. So I kind of have a little experience with going from an older building to a newer building. I just wanted to let everyone know things that I noticed walking inside the building. I think that the science labs, the brand new science labs that exist now in these new schools, do have capabilities that really don't exist in labs that were built years ago. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities in our science classrooms that really don't exist. And the rooms looked, very large and, very impressive. And so I think that's something that's really important for the public to know. I thought that the gym space was very impressive. I thought the athletic, the devotion of the sheer square footage for the athletic spaces, I thought was pretty large, especially when you're actually in there. I thought that was impressive. Third thing I noticed was for the music space, or the band chorus space. It was nice to see like individual practice rooms, in addition to the very large space, which will allow instrument storage and a lot of room for our students to perform. So I think, in terms of the extracurricular activities, I think that this building definitely is will serve all of those very well. And then in terms of academics, the science labs definitely stand out. So yeah, everything looks really good, and we're just hoping that everything's coming according to plan, and hoping that this is all locked and loaded by the end of this year, pretty much. Any other comments or questions?
Great.
Okay.
So just again, a reminder in terms of time, it's taken us 10 years or a little bit more to get to where we are right now at the high school. So when we're talking about, for example, the warrant that we'll talk about in town meeting for feasibility work or pre-feasibility work for the Greenwood, that's not to finish this project and jump right into another project. That likely would be 8 or 10 years out, right? And so, but we're just trying to plan ahead and be prepared. And again, the reason why, just to kind of let everybody know about that warrant or doing that work at the Greenwood, one is for enrollment, right? Because our enrollment is going up. The other is because the building has some accessibility issues and ADA issues. And so we want to just make sure that we're keeping up with what needs to be squared away in that building to accommodate faculty, students, and staff. But that's a very quick update there. We are in the fourth quarter. Spring sports are well underway. Girls lacrosse is off to a really strong start. Boys lacrosse is undefeated. Baseball was playing today. They were playing Stoneham. I think last time I checked, they were winning. They're also kind of well situated to make another run like they did last year. They played deep into the tournament last year. Girls softball is off to a very strong start. Boys track won their first meet, and girls track was a very, very close meet, but they lost, right? And so unfortunately, so it's also, in terms of calendar, it's also the time of year where we have Visual and Performing Arts Day. They call it VPAD. So it's when our high schoolers go down to the middle school and perform for students. They'll perform for 2,500 students. They'll do 3 shows a day. And every student, I think, that attends and sees both the art events and the kind of the band and kind of vocal performances by Voices of Steel and a cappella, I think every student leaves there willing to sign up for some group. And so it's kind of like a great recruiting day, and a special thanks to everyone involved to make that group happen. And of course, thank you to Mr. Bankert for that. Just keeping everyone abreast, we're also finishing up MCAS. We have a few students making up tests. About a week ago, I was also asked to participate in a video for the Energy Park. And we're also going to be collaborating with the Energy Park on kind of the engineering of the design of the park and how that will work, which is super exciting because the battery park, if you remember, the battery park is a 5 megawatt battery park. So it's like a microgrid. And so, and it also has a 2.5 megawatt natural gas generator. So that battery park will also be connected to our solar panels. It'll be on the roof of the new high school. And so it will work for peak shaving, right? For those of you that don't know what peak shaving are, during peak times, electricity is more costly. So what you can do is you can pull the school, or schools, in this case, both Northeast and the new high school. If, for example, you were air conditioning the school in the spring and costs were particularly high, what you could do to shave those costs is you would disconnect from the state grid and you would connect to the battery park and run from the battery park. So that's how it runs, like a microgrid, right? And then you could pick up later in the day when the rates came down. So it's a cost savings. So in terms of engineering, it's a very, very cool project for kids to see and to learn from. And so we're also working with WMGLD, and Joanne Marks is going to be working with them as well to try to make connections in terms of how we can talk to our students about this from any numbers of different perspectives, from selling electricity to the engineering of how these systems are interconnected. It's also changing our carbon footprint, which is particularly positive. And just my last remark is just to let the community know that there's a theater event, Chicago. It will be playing on May 1st to the 3rd here at the high school. So it'll be the last theater event of the year. And I think it promises to be a terrific take. And so we're looking forward to that. But a lot happening. And just one more piece. Yesterday was Metco Advocacy Day at the State House. And while at the State House, I got to run into Kevin, who was there with his students. And they were there for a field trip doing some work there, which was great. And so it's also a great opportunity for us to meet with other districts and learn what they're doing with Medco, to kind of hear from the new Medco director, Candace Sumner, Dr. Sumner. But it's also a great opportunity to talk to our legislators about rising costs with transportation. So we're trying to take advantage of every possible opportunity to do that. So happy to take any questions. I know it's a long list and it's kind of a busy time, but that's a very quick update.
Stephen?
Rolling back to Chicago, I think I hadn't even thought of where it was going to be held. I think I had assumed it was going to be the Galvin, but so they're going to perform they're going to perform Chicago in the Savings Bank
I
Theater.
believe so, yeah.
That'll
First
be,
to the third.
that'll be a thing. Okay,
Unless you know what? I'll double check online after I'm done my comments.
that's quite a production.
But I'm pretty sure it's at WMHS. Yeah,
Okay,
the first to the third. Yeah,
cool.
it's exciting.
Cool.
So the last item I have is just to share the Wakefield Public Schools notification of rights under FERPA for schools. And so this is something that was shared with the committee last year. We just have to update the committee and update our parents and community and students that are 18 years old or older, that they have rights under FERPA, and we have to share what those rights are. So this document is broken down into kind of 4 sections. There are 3 rights, and the first right is a right to access your files if you're a student or a parent. You have a right to request an amendment to educational records if you feel that there is something inaccurate or misleading in there. It will be reviewed, and then a decision will be made if that amendment can be made. So that's done by the administration, but parent has a right to do that, or a student who's 18 or older. And the third right is a right to consent to disclose the educational record to a third party, right? And that does not include, for example, a receiving school. So if a student were to come and enroll here at Wakefield Memorial High School, an administrator could call the sending school and ask for the student record. They have a right to do that, and they will share that because they would be enrolling in the school. And the fourth kind of section is just to let parents know if you feel like any of these rights have been violated, you could certainly make a complaint. This document is very straightforward. It will be included with the handbook, and it will also be online. So there'll be a few ways to link to it if parents wish to view it, but we will be sharing it in August. So we're just planning ahead of the curve. I talked to Melissa about this earlier. Said might as well get it done. Like get it out there, get it done, which is great. So that's it from me. But that's where we're at. Yes, sir.
Is there a change, like in the FERPA, is there a change at all?
No.
Or is it pretty much the exact same?
It's the same that we shared last year.
Okay.
We just need to let parents know annually.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we're just kind of letting the committee know
Yep.
this is how we're doing it and what we're doing.
Okay. Great. All right, no more questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Lyons. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda are my comments. So I think, sorry, Michelle, I didn't clarify. For the budget discussion, I wanted to be
put it in
under
the wrong place.
mine. Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, we're getting to budget season, and we have our annual town meeting. Our town meeting is coming up very soon. And, I just wanted to, tell the community that, as we've been saying all along, we've been working very hard on a level service budget. And again, just to repeat, a level service budget is a budget that is going to cover everything that we are currently offering educationally in the district right now. That means that we're not adding any service that does not currently exist, right? That's what level service means, right? And I just want to say that because there's definitely a lot of talk around town about the increase percentage in the budget that we're asking for in terms of the increase of money that we're asking over this current fiscal year. And I just want everyone to be clear, everyone not to be clear, everyone to know in the community that there are fixed costs that every town has to bear, that every community has to bear. And we feel, our finance subcommittee that I've been talking with, as long as all of us here, feel very confident with this budget. We all voted on this budget, right? So we're all on record on voting unanimously for this budget, and we very much are going to support, support this budget that we democratically voted for. And yeah, so there are, on that note, there is going to be a tri-board meeting tomorrow night, which is on the same night as our WEF night, which is another one of my comments. We have a WEF night tomorrow night where we are going to be recognizing the academic achievement of students in our elementary, middle, and high school, and also, I assume, certain educators as well that we've done in the past. And that's going to start at 6:30 tomorrow. But there's also going to be a tri-board meeting, which is going to be a meeting ostensibly between the school committee, members of the school committee that can make it, and also the town council and finance committee. And the purpose of the tri-board meeting is to examine all of the budgets as we're looking at revenue forecasting over the last month, so we can have an open conversation about this. So I plan to go to WEF, give a speech, and then hopefully go over and be able to help give my feedback on the tri-board meeting. And yeah, and we'll give feedback about that meeting in our next school committee meeting that will take place after April break. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the budget on the committee? No? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent evaluation. Basically every year, the school committee is supposed to give the superintendent an evaluation. Because I'm an educator, and I checked up with this with our lawyer. I always think of evaluations in a 2-year cycle. So basically, generally, the way an educator is evaluated, year 1 of the cycle is called a formative assessment, and year 2 is the summative assessment. Those are big fancy words, but basically all it means that the summative assessment is basically your final grade. Like, this is your final grade of how you performed as a superintendent. That's the end of year 2. Formative assessment is us basically telling the superintendent how he's doing. So basically, are you making progress toward your goals? Are you making progress toward the district goals? But he's also being evaluated along the same rubric as he is on the summative assessment. Okay. So every member of the school committee offered me their individual assessment of Dr. Lyons, and I took these evaluations and basically wrote a composite evaluation, which is a very weird process, in that I've obviously got my own personal judgment and personal bias involved, and I'm trying to take everyone else's feedback as well. So for any school committee member who is upset that I did not include a particular comment or particular feedback, I apologize, but because we are talking about this today, you have ample chance to talk about whatever you wish. So you definitely have an opportunity. So we are going to discuss Dr. Lyons' evaluation here, in open session today, and yeah. So I'll open it up to the committee before I give my own, my own reading of the evaluation. But so I'll just open it up before I speak. Does anyone have any comments that they want to make concerning Dr. Lyons' evaluation? Wow. Oh, Stephen.
Were you going to say wow? I'm sorry.
Can I say wow?
I was just going to say, well, thank you for putting this together. Having done it in the past, I know it can be a little bit like herding cats. It's hard to sort of form one voice from many. And so I appreciate how sort of uniform this sort of reads out. And I think it's a good reflection on all of the work that Dr. Lyons has done over the year, especially, to this point. it continues to be a challenge to sort of manage a district, especially in some of the more tumultuous times that we've had most recently. There's a lot of changing of the landscape in terms of how we access grants, what's available to us, what funding mechanisms are there. And then also, I think just student mental health continues to be at the forefront of ways that impact teaching in the day-to-day in every classroom. And so keeping an eye on that is no small thing. And putting together a strong team that can sort of navigate those challenges is a huge effort. So appreciate that that's sort of read out in here. And yeah, so I appreciate it. I think it's a good assessment. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had to say. So thank you for the work, and Dr. Lyons, thank you for your work also that is reflected here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, Kevin?
This is maybe the first time I've been on the committee that we've actually done an evaluation more than every few years. So good job, having us do that this year. Even though I know we were supposed to, I think things tend to kind of get in the way and doesn't always happen. So it was good to have this opportunity to look at the goals and the types of things that had been articulated by Dr. Lyons, and to kind of take some time to assess where those are. Was this formative? Which ones?
This is formative.
This was formative. Okay. Yeah. And so a lot easier than the larger one that we had to do last year. But thank you for pulling this all together. As I was looking through everything, I think there's been so much progress being made recently, or for quite a while, here in the district. And one thing that I kind of gathered last night, being here for the town council, was that acknowledgement. I think almost every single member kind of mentioned the great things happening in the Wakefield Public Schools. And that certainly is in large part to the role that our teachers and our staff, but certainly the leadership plays in having that, kind of pulling together the team that we have to be making the progress that we have has been incredible to be able to watch. Like, you see so much turnover, I think, in education in general. You see so many superintendents coming and going, principals coming and going. And the fact that, Dr. Lyons, you've created a culture here where our leadership stays, and I think a lot of our leaders could probably have lots of options if they wanted to. They're really incredible educators and administrators. Christine and Kara and our principals. And so the fact that you've created that sort of environment here, and your longevity and commitment to this town is palpable. And it's just something I really, really appreciate. In my experience of 1.0, we had a number of superintendents in the 6 years that I was in the 1.0, and that is very common. And it's so disruptive. Yeah. And the fact that we have the longevity, but also a strong leader, and I think in what you've done over, like you say, 11 years, you've been here, and hopefully for many more. So I'm really appreciative of the work that you do, and certainly everybody in the district. But since we're just evaluating you right now, just thank you for all the work that you've done. I was pleased to, mark proficient in every area that was there, and again, look forward to many years of continued leadership. We're going to enter, as if all the predictions are right, some really difficult times coming up. And so to have steady leadership when particularly the finances might be really, really challenging is more important than ever. So I'm really grateful for your leadership and your work in the district and for the town.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay. One thing that made this relatively easy to write is that there were definitely different ratings on different standards and different individual substandards, but overall it was pretty universal feedback. I think there was agreement on a lot of issues. Like, there were certain things that I could have just taken one of your comments and just, yeah, that's fine, and just cut and paste. I actually did cut and paste a few things in here. So so I think that there was definitely, not ChatGPT though, it was just plagiarizing you. But basically I think it definitely, I felt that there wasn't really any real areas of real disagreement, that was strong. So I think that definitely made this easy, to do. A lot of times you'll have different school committee members with different opinions, and I know Stephen in the past has written this. Tom wrote it, I think, years ago, however many years ago, and I know it can be difficult, but that made this easy. Okay. All right. So in terms of the evaluation, I know getting into weeds, but basically, I think Dr. Lyons, and he hasn't expressed this to me, but he can feel frustrated about this. But he has to create superintendent goals, like his own personal goals, but he also has to create district goals. And I really just said he made adequate progress. And one reason why I did that is those goals are linked to the universal standards that we basically have to grade them on. So I did write feedback. And a description of how we felt for the 4 standards. But I felt it would be a little redundant for me to go through the goals. But I just want to say that I think that you are definitely making more than adequate, significant progress towards the goals. And there's really no reason to think that they will not be fulfilled at the end of next year. And if Dr. Lyons decides to add another goal or to modify these goals for whatever reason, if an emergency comes about this summer or in the fall, absolutely that's totally allowed, and we'll be flexible when the evaluation comes next year. So in the end, there's 4 major standards for instructional leadership. Dr. Lyons has earned a proficient grade, and honestly, this was. There were a couple of us who gave you exemplary, and I think that the evidence it really does put you very close to that grade. For anyone that doesn't know, the way the state works, proficient basically means you are meeting the standard, you're meeting the requirement. It's basically kind of like, I almost call it like an A- or an A, like in a grade, like you're basically hitting everything. Exemplary basically means that you're above and beyond. It basically means so if you have a school of 80 teachers, there might be like maybe 2 or 3, like the state when they created this guideline said. Like it's really not meant to be just given out like candy. But there was a lot of evidence that does say that Dr. Lyons definitely deserved proficiency. One thing that I personally have given feedback on, and I'm happy to see, is increased administrative walkthroughs. I really do think that constant feedback, not just the formal evaluation progress, which can be sometimes not necessarily effective, sometimes a dog and pony show. I think that's really important to get constant, quick, administrators walking into classrooms and then giving good feedback, like, making observations. And going along with this, the curriculum team that has been set up, Kevin Piscatello talked about the stability of the curriculum team, as well as the stability of the superintendent, as well as the impressive retention rate for teachers and our staff. I think that's also vital to this goal of instructional leadership. I don't care how great a plan you have, if you don't have the talent to carry out that plan, and more importantly, the ability to keep that talent, it doesn't really matter how good the plan is. So I really do, and I would definitely recommend keeping up those walkthroughs and giving us feedback about observations that are being given. We'll like to see that continue and expand on that. In the end, our goal is improved instructional practices, right? Like in the end, that's the game, and that's what we want to see in our classrooms. The fact that we were one of 13 schools to meet or surpass pre-pandemic scores in grades 3 through 8 for math and ELA is a nice quantitative way to say that there has been progress made there. So good job. Standard 2, I got an exemplary grade. And the reason why is pretty basic. Kevin just talked about, I just talked about the budget. Kevin just talked about fiscal environment. Everyone knows that we are an incredibly, incredibly hard fiscal environment in the state of Massachusetts. The state of Massachusetts is really in a tough spot at this moment in terms of budget. I'm not just talking about local. I'm talking about our state budget is in a lot of turmoil, and I think that one problem with evaluating someone who's been here for so long is like it's really kind of hard to just look at this moment of time when we evaluate, but we also have to look at the last 5 years, the last 10 years. And the reason why I think, and Dr. Lyons has always gotten really high grades in this particular standard for fiscal management, fiscal operations, and human resources management, but we are in a really turbulent economic environment. And the fact that we've been able to create a strong level service budget, and we're building a new high school that's on schedule and is on budget. We're looking at a feasibility study for the Greenwood. Not looking at it's been approved, correct? So all of these things, I think, particularly with the difficulty that we're in now, deserves an exemplary rating, because I think that looking at degree of difficulty is a very important thing to look at, and I think that this is a tough time. Standard 3, communication with the public, I think is very good. I think that this is such a hard thing for school leaders to meet, because you have so many constituencies that you're trying to communicate out with, and we think that you've done a very good job with this. And just like feedback is just like, and I know you're constantly communicating with parents, you're constantly communicating with stakeholders, just making sure always having, timely communication, but, you're doing a very good job here. I know we're trying to do the podcast format to try to message out stuff. And, if we can come up with more creative ways, to message things out, we should operate that. And then standard 4, which, I think that, we've done a lot of good things in terms of, creating a unified educational team. I think that our administrative team is very cohesive. You created an assistant director of special education and an elementary special education coordinator, and you were able to do this in a financially responsible way. And I think that's very evident that the creation of these positions has been very, very positive for these particular aspects of the district. And again, the stability of the curriculum team, if there's anything you're going to look at us compared to other schools, compared to other towns, like if you're going to pick one thing that we have that other places don't, I think if you look at the curriculum leadership, that's probably the one thing that you might say, oh, what does your org chart look like? What does your org chart look like? And, and I think ours, is pretty stable. And I think that, your ability to create a stable team that doesn't really leave, is a pretty good testament there. There have been trust issues and communication issues with the Wakefield Educators Association. Not just this year. This has been a very long-term thing that's been happening in the past. So I think that, you and us, that's not just you, but we do have to continue to work on facilitating, trying to create a more positive cultural environment with union leadership, specifically around trust issues. Yeah. So overall, proficient grade, and that's it. Any other comments or feedback? Steve?
I would just say the feasibility study on the Greenwood is warrant 21 on town meeting.
Oh, it has not been approved. My bad. I was like,
That's
oh
right.
my
That's right.
gosh.
Just for anyone
It was
else.
approved to show up on the warrant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's
Citizens of Wakefield, you must approve this. We cannot do this as a dictatorship. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. That's it for me. All right. Next item on the agenda, subcommittee reports. Tom Markham is not here. Does anyone on finance facilities want to talk about the last meeting?
I'll give a quick update, and maybe you can chime in, Melissa, if I miss anything. So most of our last meetings have really been to meet with the liaisons from the finance committee to the school committee. So we just have had I think it's been very productive. We've had very direct meetings back and forth, just talking about the budget, answering questions. Dr. Lyons had some questions that he's been working to get answers for, and he reiterated some of those. So, I think I just want to give my thanks to the crew from the Finance Committee. They They've showed up at a lot of the subcommittee meetings, and they've been, I would say, good partners in trying to work through some tough issues.
We have another meeting coming this, I believe, this Friday morning as a subcommittee.
Okay.
And to encourage everyone to come to town meeting on May 4th and vote for our budget.
Are finance committee members coming to that? To the Friday meeting?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's a public meeting. Anyone can come.
Yeah,
No, I didn't know
I
if they
haven't-
were
I
on
haven't
the,
heard.
I didn't know if they were on the agenda for, yeah.
they haven't been on the agenda, they've just
Yeah,
come in.
they've just
Yes,
come
oh,
to
yeah,
participate,
good,
yeah.
good, yep. Okay. Next subcommittee, labor and personnel.
Labor and Personnel hasn't met since our last meeting. However, we are going to be posting our next session
Sorry, keep.
with the WEA
Yeah.
to continue our conversations around the move and some of the schedule changes. And that'll be scheduled for April 28th.
Yes, yes. I know, I got so confused. So April 20, because our school committee meeting is going to be on April 29th, because on the 28th is town election
Correct.
day. Correct. So the Galvins could, are, yeah, anyway. Next item on the agenda, sorry, next subcommittee, student services.
Student services is not met since our last meeting.
Okay. And next item, next subcommittee, policy and communications.
We have met since our last meeting, and we have a motion to lay on the table our JKAA policy, which is the policy for restraint, and
Ooh.
yeah. So it's just an update from a few months ago.
Yeah.
Just some verbiage needed to be changed, and we were waiting for some feedback from our lawyers. So it's ready to go.
Okay, so I think we have a motion on,
Motion to lay on the table.
Second? Or do you want
You wanna
to
make
Do you want to make the motion? Yeah,
Will
sorry.
the school committee lay on the table policy JKAA as presented for 2 weeks to be voted on at the April 29th, 2026 school committee meeting?
Second.
all right, motion has been seconded. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, it is laid on the table. Thank you, Melissa. Any liaison reports? Alex?
CPAC did have a scheduled meeting last Thursday. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. I do want to thank Ann Herzog for taking time out of her schedule to connect with me and kind of give me some updates on what was there outside of the time that was allotted for the meeting. She shared that Shannon Blacker shared that the results of several special education program evaluations will be available at the end of April, and she will share that with the CPAC. We continue to collaborate. The CPAC continues to collaborate with Parent University on programming, and are hoping to schedule a school anxiety/school avoidance presentation in the fall. The CPAC will be a part of the Galvin United event on May 7th, hosting a resource table for families. And our CPAC Superheroes nominations will start in May. And the CPAC always looks forward to celebrating our educators in this special way.
Thank you. Any other, Melissa?
I just wanted to report that the youth council did a great job with their winter programming, where they help seniors with the shoveling. So the Snow Angels program was really successful this year, and wanted to thank the kids that were involved.
Great. Pete?
The Human Rights Commission has their Asian Art and Food Truck Festival coming up May 17th. It will be at the Galvin, 11:30 to 2:30. They are looking for volunteers for anyone who wants to participate, but it should be a lot of fun. So hopefully the community comes out to support it.
Great. What day is that?
I think it's a Saturday, but I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Is it a Saturday, Michelle? Yes,
I forgot the day you said, so.
May 17th.
So it's a while. Okay. Great. Any other liaison reports? Okay.
Sunday?
That's it.
Okay, Sunday, May 17th.
So the Chicago theater event will be here at the high school. Just double check that.
Okay.
And our Springtown meeting will be Monday, May 4th.
Right.
Really important.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna have one school committee meeting before
Correct.
that election,
Correct.
which will be the day after town elections. Good. Okay. So yes, want to encourage everyone to go to town meeting on May 4th. Next time on the agenda, future dates and agenda items. Our next meeting is Wednesday, April 29th at 7 o'clock. We will have an executive session, almost like 99% sure, at 6 o'clock p.m. Before that. So everyone should be, yes.
Yeah, so on a future agenda item, I was still wondering if we could get a look at the open data,
Open architects.
open architects data set. Not necessarily the data itself, but I'm interested in how administrators are using it.
Okay.
So, okay.
Happy to kind of put that on
All
there.
right. Got an agenda item. Good. Any other agenda items? Alex?
No agenda, I'm just a comment.
Oh,
You get to-
sure. Okay, next, school committee comments. Alex?
So I just wanted to mention that last week, the House of Representatives took another big step in ensuring the well-being of all students with passing a bill, at least their step in doing so, and it's returned to the Senate, that sets an age restriction on social media use for children that are under the age of 14, which is huge. And it also looking towards, with an eye towards banning cell phone usage in school. And I wanted to mention this because a number of districts have been out ahead of this with policies and practices that safeguard our students' mental health, and Wakefield being amongst them with certain steps that we've taken recently. So just something of note, that keep an eye on that, because there's going to be some requirements from districts to, put policies in place and how they're going to, restrict cell phone usage in schools.
Yeah, I was at a field trip this weekend, probably 110 students from various schools, and they were debating like Sunday night, all day Monday, and this morning. And one thing I noticed, and I haven't seen this since 2016, I'm not even talking COVID, I'm talking well before COVID, there wasn't really a kid on their phone. I mean, there were a couple that would look at it and be like, to check the time. I mean, I'm noticing anecdotally, I don't know if you're seeing this in your school, but it does seem that it's almost a self-awareness, I think, of students, that they're like, yeah, this thing's addictive. I swear the teachers, including myself, were worse than the teenagers. Seriously. So it was kind of, it is an interesting thing, and in talking with students about it. So, I'm also very happy that Massachusetts passed that, especially the social media restriction, but also the cell phone. I think it's the toughest in the country if it gets passed by the Senate and approved by the governor.
I think something's going to pass. And I also think that following this might be a year out. There's a movement happening right now with parents to limit screen time for elementary students in school, which is kind of interesting, And it's the prompt alone has really caused us to take time and start having conversation about the quality of the screen time that we're having students do. What is the purpose? How do we know it's working? That type of thing. So there's more to follow there.
There's schools that are now no Chromebooks, like gone, like in the classroom, that they're counterproductive. Which I'm not saying go that far, but there are.
It's also tough too, because a lot of the HQIMs that have been put in place have a connection to, online.
Oh yeah. It's
know,
hard. Yeah. But interesting.
No, I have my own thoughts on the topic, but I thought this could be an agenda item before I give my thoughts on the topic. So
It could be like 3 hours.
I'm on a totally different spectrum than everyone else on this topic. So I actually provided my negative feedback on the bill to both Kate and Donald. Just my 2 cents. It's kind of like Big Brother tracking people. I think it goes against our students who have disabilities, our LGBTQ community. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think our school, we're already putting our own rules in place. I don't think we needed the state to come down and hand us those. And So anyway, just my 2 cents. I realize I'm kind of on a different spectrum than everyone else in this topic.
I don't think you're there.
I don't think you're that far away.
I think you're.
I mean, I'm
Oh, no, he and I are opposites.
totally.
Oh, no, he and I are
Yeah,
far away.
I don't believe in the state dictating these things. I think that we as a district and a school committee should be able to make our own rules and put those in place. That's my 2 cents. I don't like that. And I also, as someone in technology, the idea that all these parents' IDs are going to be collected. I mean, they can't control the data leaks. I mean, we're just asking for another Experian data leak. I mean, seriously. So anyway, as I said, this could be its own agenda topic, but I just want to give my 2 cents that I'm not a fan of it, and I did express that to Kate and Donald, and I did hear back from Kate, which I appreciate, and she did let me know that she heard many positive things from
I don't
people.
know if everyone knows who Kate is.
Oh, Lipper Garabedian,
Yes.
one of our 2 state reps from
And Donald Wong.
and Donald
Yes,
Wong. Thank you.
Correct.
One thing as a school committee, as a district, I would urge us to keep an eye on is as this landscape changes. I think we are uniquely poised to sort of provide an educational component to parents of students as they navigate sort of whether it's social media or just sort of digital use. There aren't a lot of resources to parents in that space, especially focused on what's happening in our own community. I've seen this before in Parent University. And I fear that, I think we've talked about it before, Parent University is sort of faded a little bit because of a lack of interest, but just because maybe folks aren't beating down the doors doesn't mean that we shouldn't still have an eye towards providing that kind of service, that kind of information. I love some of the modules that have been put together with teacher voices, with student voices, talking about the impact of social media and device usage on themselves. We've had student ambassadors sit here in front of us and actually tell us that the digital device ban at the high school, sort of, only between lunch, has actually been a refreshing take on them, that no one's checking their phone because they know their peers aren't checking their phones. So there's less of a rush to get to that sort of notification on their screen. Hearing those voices, I think, would put parents at ease, families at ease. And so I just think, however this conversation gets sculpted and happens, I think we have a responsibility to sort of see how we can help inform the discussion.
Agree. I couldn't agree more. And I do think people need to be informed about pros and cons, and I think, it can go in an extreme in either way. And I'm kind of, I have more of a pragmatic approach to, how can we take what's good instead of shifting to extremes of all yes or all no. Like, how do we know it's good, and how do we talk about it being good? How do we genuinely feel it being good? How can we see it being good? How do students describe it as good? How do they describe it as challenging? And so I think we really need to take the opportunity to think about, what are the metrics? Who are we hearing from, right? What are the voices? And so there's going to be more on this as we kind of move. We're going to be in May in a moment, right? So we're closing out the year. We're pretty close there too. But we're also thinking about summer work that we're going to be doing, so this will come up then. We're also thinking about kind of AI, professional development, AI work with students. We had a kind of a parent, had some parents in a few weeks ago talking about how they would love to support an AI club or an AI opportunity for students, which is really exciting, right? Because we have a lot of our kids creating content, and some of it's remarkable, and some of it isn't, and kids need some coaching in this space to know, like, that's great, and maybe that isn't. But, and so, I think there's a lot of work to be done here still. So more to follow.
Any other comments?
On a lighter note, I did not make it to town council last night. I went to VPAD at the AmeriGold to see sort of student art, and it's one of those places where the schools one of my students, my son, would not come with his mom and I because he wanted fresh eyes on it. He didn't want to be spoiled just seeing it, in the evening. But I just thought it was so great to see sort of kids from different schools. Maybe I think I saw a couple of kids that were friends from a baseball team, but they didn't go to the same school. They're showing each other's art, and so we're excited to see sort of this is what I was doing with my teacher, this is what I was doing with my teacher, and to have sort of parents and caregivers come in and see not just what their own kids are doing, but what other kids are doing, what maybe their friends are doing. And it was such a nice event. They had a string quartet from the high school was there playing, and if you didn't look at the kids, you would have thought you were in Symphony Hall. I thought it was piped in for a second there. I was like, oh, nope, those are actual students. That was amazing. And there was some light refreshments and stuff, and just a nice way to sort of present what's happening in the arts in our K through 8 level to sort of the community. It was a great use of the space, and so thankful for the folks that put that together.
Any other comments? All right. All right, I think we have a motion to adjourn.
Move the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, April 14th, 2026.
Second.
All right, motion's been seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. All right, see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.